Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast. And do you remember at the start of the season, Archie, we were struggling every single week to get content out. We'd have 3-week break after 3-week break and it'd be, oh my goodness, what do we do this week? Now we're through that stage and we're through to the chaotic side of the season where every single week we seem to have something going on. And you kind of want an off week every once in a while to just take a breather from the last few weeks and put out other content such as the episode we've got going for today. And we've got more stuff planned, but almost not enough weeks to fill it in now. So it's that craziest time of the season, but we're very much looking forward to this episode, which we'll touch on very briefly. But a seemingly rare off week. I mean, after this, we do have, 5 races in 4 weeks. So the chaos doesn't really stop from here.
How are we here already? Obviously, I feel like having Barber at the start of May as well, after that final of the 3-week intervals between early season races. Since then, it's just been utterly relentless, hasn't it? And I think after this off weekend, I mean, we're recording on a Friday here, taking the weekend off, going down to London, which should be quite nice. But I think from here on in, we have maybe 2 off weekends until the end of August. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I mean, I love this episode, but I feel like the season's flying away a little bit too quickly here.
This episode is great, but at the same time, you start thinking, "Oh my goodness me, we're actually on at the time of recording, we are literally 2 maps away in about 4 days from the end of the season, which was absolutely ridiculous. It feels like we've just started, and here we are, pretty much 2 months away from doing our end of year review. It feels far too soon, and another 6 months of off season. The proportions of the season never feel quite right, do they? They need to balance this in the calendar next year because it's incredibly frustrating. Obviously, the season is based around NFL, so it's never going to really be easy like that. But I always just find it chaotic.
It's like when you go on holiday and you kind of get say you go on holiday for 10 days and you get 4 days or so in, and you suddenly start thinking, oh, I've only got 6 more days left of the holiday, and oh my god, in this time in 2 days, I'll only have 4 days left. And that's kind of happening with the IndyCar season now.
It feels like we're day 7 now. It's like, oh my goodness, we're getting packing up soon. Let's get our stuff together. But anyway, let's look forward to what we're going to do this week, which is our annual mid-season review. So we're going to give out some awards to the first 9 races of the season, to various drivers and events that we want to reflect on, and we'll obviously reflect on various different topics. And that will also give us an opportunity to preview the last 8 races of 2025. So bit of a reflection, bit of a preview, just to round out what we've done and what's going to happen for the rest of the season. As we do every year, we've come up with 8 or so topics that we're going to discuss from the start of the season. And then, as always, we're going to end off with some predictions towards the rest of the season. But let's start off with the best driver of the season so far. Now, this isn't really up for debate. It's Alex Palou. If you don't think it's Alex Palou, you haven't been watching the same series as everybody else has this year. You must be about 4 years behind or something along those lines. So, and the second best is pretty much unanimously Carl Kirkwood as well. So, for the sake of making this episode slightly interesting, we decided to disqualify both of them from the best driver award, otherwise it'd be too boring. So we're actually selecting the third best driver as the best driver, but it's probably worth briefly touching on both Palou and Kirkwood. We'll start with Palou. He's obviously had a historical start to 2025. We're witnessing a legendary run of form now, which hasn't been seen in modern day IndyCar ever, really. So 6 wins out of the first 9 races, second place as well to back that up. Obviously an Indianapolis 500 in that as well. So a 4th championship for Palou is all but sealed at this point, even though we're only halfway through the season, as remarkable as that is to say. But we've obviously spoken about Palou in victory 6 times this season, and he is dominating the field now. He's an absolute class apart. He is fixing his weaknesses, whether that's qualifying, whether that's a lack of oval victory. His tyre management, particularly in primaries, is simply unfathomable. He is in a different league right now to the rest of the opposition, and whatever the other 25 plus sometimes Carl Kirkwood throw at him, he just puts them all down, seemingly with relative ease. And as I said, we're witnessing a historic accomplishment right now in IndyCar, and Alex Palou's domination is probably going to lessen in the second half of the season, but that's not to take away from what has been a simply remarkable first 9 races to start 2025.
Yeah, I mean, when you think you've seen it all, he kind of breaks new ground every race. I feel like every race we come away with some new record, and even with 6 wins inside 9 races, no driver's done that in an entire season, as we mentioned last episode, since Will Power in 2011. So even that's going back 14 years. But no, I mean, the Indy 500 was kind of the crowning moment already, this legacy-defining day for his career. And I think it would be that way regardless of what was happening in the championship. But I think just adding it on top of what has been unfolding in the championship just adds to what a just ridiculous, absurd season this has been. And I think the 500 was big, obviously, because that was kind of taking pressure off with that first oval win, and Palou himself saying that his career wouldn't be complete if he hadn't won the 500. And it just absolutely completes his resume at 28 years old after 6 years in IndyCar. And I think he genuinely is still getting better. Like, I feel like he's unlocked to this pure pace this year that we haven't actually seen from him before. Like, his qualifying's always been very good, very consistent, getting into the Fast Six, but I think he's stepped it up another notch this year. And in terms of races as well, he's just winning in every kind of conceivable way. I mean, we've seen patient wins where it's kind of felt like he's been in control of the race, but not actually leading. We've seen the classic Palou runaway wins. We've seen him fighting hard for wins. We've seen strategic wins. I mean, the combination of Palou and his 10 team is just legendary. I don't think you can put it any other way. And the execution we see every week from Palou is so impressive. And the thing that I've said so many times through the start to the season is he's bringing inevitability to a series that is so defined by its unpredictability, which is, I think it just outlines how rare what we're seeing is. And I mean, just a couple of stats, like he's got 50 top 5s now. His win at Road America was his 50th career top 5 in only 90 races. 49 of those have been in 76 races with Ganassi, which equates to 64% of races, which is incredible in a series that is obviously so hailed for its competitiveness. And with only 8 races left, he's only 158 points off his tally that he won the championship with last year, which is 3 maximum points weekends, and he'll wrap that up. If he was to win the next 3 races and get 54 points every weekend, he'd have last season's tally with 5 races in hand. But 6 years in the series, 5 years with Ganassi, on the brink of 4 championships, and at 28 years old, he's already a great, and I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this. And I just don't feel like any words can do it justice as much as we speak about Palou. It's just history unfolding before our eyes. And as we've said a lot, I know people see, it's boring, what have you, but this is so rare. And I think we've just got to enjoy and appreciate that we're living through the Alex Palou era of dominance.
And let's also give a mention to Carl Kirkwood. He is the only person to stop Alex Palou from reaching victory lane this year. He's done it on 3 occasions, obviously the first time since 1980s. We said last week that 2 drivers have shared the opening 9 race victories between themselves. And this has been a real year of development for Carl Kirkwood. We've seen that raw pace on occasions, particularly in his first year with Andretti, and we saw a bit more of that consistency last year. But now Kirkwood's sort of combining both those packages. We've seen him very strong at ovals as well this year. He's claimed his first oval victory, and once he gets to the front, Kirkwood looks very assured every single time, as he has done his entire junior career. And it feels like we've patiently waited for Kirkwood to get to the stage. The pedigree he came with into the series was remarkably high, higher than almost any other rookie we've ever had. And his obviously first couple of seasons were difficult, but now he's showing why he was worth the wait, and he's quickly established himself as one of IndyCar's top drivers, comfortably the top driver at Andretti Global this season, despite Colton Herta's reputation in the series. And considering how dominant Palou has been, Kirkwood has done a sensational job multiple times to stamp his authority in the series on occasion. So it's been a real year of development for Carl Kirkwood, and it's been great to see him now as one of the main contenders, because he's been on the fringes of it for a couple of years now. But it's good to see that all finally coming together, and he's quickly becoming one of the most reliable drivers in this series as well. And I said last year that he was grossly misunderrated, and I am being proved very right this year from Carl Kirkwood.
Yeah, I feel like this has really been kind of the crescendo of a couple of years of development since he obviously had the rookie year with Foyt, whatever, that was what it was. But it really kind of, his IndyCar career was kick-started when he joined Andretti in 23. And you first off had those peaks of 23 where he had those 2 wins, but nothing outside of that. They were his only top 5s. And then his second season doesn't quite match those peaks, but he actually jumps 4 positions in the championship just because he finds such consistency. And that alone was almost as impressive, probably more impressive than what he did in his first year with the team. And this year, the target was to really kind of knit together those peaks with the consistency. And he's done that with aplomb. He's become a really reliable, consistent, and complete IndyCar driver. Yeah, if it wasn't for the absurdity of Pallot's season, I mean, we'd be hailing a super impressive year, and I think we still should. Like, I mean, Palou, after 9 races last year, led the championship on 329 points. Kirkwood, now after 9 races this year, is only 36 points shy of that, and he lost 24 points with the penalty at Indy that put him down from 6th down to minimum points. So that's pretty huge. And yeah, it's been a real breakthrough season, and I think he's just continued that trajectory with which he's kind of just conducted himself with such maturity. It's been so methodical really over the last couple of years, and I think his victories have been quite Palou-like in some ways, that sort of control, composure, resilience when he's needed it. And he seems to make the right decisions all the times in races as well, has that nice balance between kind of playing the percentage game, taking calculated risks. And yeah, obviously a lot of pressure when he came in with probably the best junior record we've seen, at least in the modern era. And that's starting to be vindicated, I feel.
Okay, let's go to our best driver of the season so far, who isn't named Alex Palou or Carl Kirkwood. And I will start off with mine. Maybe a bit of recency bias, but I'm actually going to go for Felix Rosenqvist because I feel like we saw a bit of this last year. And the team and Rosenqvist's ability to now quietly but consistently pick up really impressive results, I think, has gone really under the radar. He's got 4 top 5 finishes this season. And I feel like not many people are recognising that. It's something we saw at the start of last year. It obviously fell away a little bit, as we've spoken about, that ability to pick up results consistently. But this alliance with Ganassi has proved obviously really beneficial. And Rosenqvist could have obviously had even more points had he not had that incident with Foster at Detroit. And obviously he got slightly misfortunate in gateways. I mean, he could have won that race if things had gone slightly differently towards the end as well there. So it's been another really impressive start to the season for Rosenqvist. Obviously a first podium with Shaq last time out on Road America. He's a really good qualifier. He's actually the 5th best full-timer in qualifying this season, only behind Palou, McLaughlin, Lundgaard and Herta. He's made the fast 12, qualified in the top 12 on all but 2 occasions this season. Made the fast 6 3 times. So Rosenqvist's form is really, really strong. And this Meyer-Shank is still not one of the top teams in IndyCar. They're maybe the 5th, the 6th best team in the series. But Rosenqvist continues to operate at a really high level, which has gone quite under the radar. So I think giving this award is quite difficult, because I was trying to think at one. You've got a few. You've got Pato O'Ward. You've got Christian Lundgaard in the mix. Maybe you've got Scott Dixon. Will Powers had a decent season as well. If you want to go recent, Santino Ferrucci is in great form. But there's no real standout third place. There's a lot of drivers who are all performing well, but I wouldn't say excellently. But I've gone for Felix Rosenqvist on this occasion.
I've gone for Rinus VeeKay.
Should have seen it coming. Should have seen it coming.
I don't think there can be any major arguments against it, really. I mean, we're talking about a driver here that was very heavily linked to some top IndyCar teams after his first few years. I seem to remember Arrow McLaren in particular. And yeah, this was a guy, he was on the podium in each of his first 3 years in the series with Ed Carpenter Racing. He was a pole sitter. He won a race in 2021. But Ed Carpenter Racing really just seemed to plummet, especially in 2023. And VeeKay's stock just really dropped as a result. He again didn't get a podium in 24 with Ed Carpenter Racing, his 5th season with the team. And then kind of at the end of the season, I don't know whether he was blindsided a bit, but it was a shock that the team cut ties with him and Rossi was added to the fold alongside Christian Rasmussen. And VeeKay had outshone Rasmussen. Okay, Rasmussen was a rookie, but VeeKay was still the guy who, you know, he had a bit of a better 24 for the team, but I ultimately think leaving that organization is the best thing that could happen to him. And Connor Daly said this when we interviewed him earlier in the season, actually, and that was after 1 race. So, yeah, I just feel like he needed to get out of ECR and be able to just prove himself elsewhere again. I feel like maybe it went a little bit stagnant there. And ultimately, Dale Coyne Racing was naturally a step down. You couldn't get worse than Dale Coyne Racing based off last year. And they had two cars who didn't even come close to making the leaders circle in 2024. The best result in any race was 13th. Yet here we are, halfway through Rinus VK's first season in the 18 car with the team, and he's been in the top 10, 5 of 9 races. He was running in the top 10 of the Indy 500 when he had a brake failure entering pit lane. He was in the top 10 having qualified, I think, 7th, started 6th in Detroit when he had a mechanical failure early on. Barber finishing 4th there and being probably 1 lap from being on the podium, probably the highlight. He's also had 5th place qualifying results in there. So it's just been so impressive. And here he sits 14th in the championship in an ECR sandwich ahead of Rasmussen and only 3 points behind the guy who replaced him, Alexander Rossi. And I think the way that he's raced this season has been very impressive, because there've been a lot of times where Dale Coyne Racing, you've looked at them in first practice and thought, Christ, they are really struggling here. Yet they always seem to find a way to recover. And even in the races, say VK qualifies around the 20th mark, he seems to just have a way of finding his way up into the top 10 in quite a methodical and meticulous way. And he's really guided a team that was on the floor back to a position where they really feel truly competitive again. And I think probably speaks to his leadership. And alongside Dennis Hauger, he probably has to be the hottest free agent prospect. But there is obviously seems a shortage of free seats for next year. So, if there's limited options, maybe even a second year with Dale Coyne Racing isn't a bad thing, because he's taking that team places.
You've got Michael Cannon next year, Indy 500. He'll be winning it.
That could be big. That car. Obviously, the 500 was the weak point, but I don't really attribute that to VK. And I actually think his drive in the race, I mean, when he had that failure, the brake issue, I mean, he was on a similar plan to the likes of Hunter Ray, I think. And he didn't have the raw pace, but he was still making it work. And who's to say he would have finished in the top 10 there, and who's to say he would have finished in the top 10 in Detroit either. But we could, if he hadn't had those two DNFs, be talking about 7 top 10s in 9 races if things had panned out.
Yeah, Nippolo crashed out in his 6 victories. He hasn't won any races this year, so if we want to play that game. I thought you just selected Rinus VK for the following award, which is going to be the Unsung Hero Award. So I'll take it you've selected something different for this one.
Yeah, do you want me to go first for this one?
I went first for the last one, so you crack on with this one.
Well, I almost had too much to say about Rinus VK for him to be unsung. I actually don't have much to say about this driver, but I've gone for Marcus Armstrong. And
I thought you might.
I feel like it wasn't quite certain where he stood as an IndyCar driver after last season, which was obviously his second year, but his first full season, doing ovals. And got to say, I think he's been pretty handy on ovals, given it's a discipline that was completely unfamiliar to him. But yeah, he's just quite quietly having a pretty strong season. Obviously changed team, but had that stability of the same engineering core group with the Meyer Shank and Ganassi alliance there. And he's still, by all accounts, around the Ganassi place quite a lot. But 11th in points, he's a little bit adrift of Rosenqvist, but he's only 14 points behind Will Power and 7th in the standings, and 1 point behind Colton Herter, who was obviously last year's runner-up. He's been in the top 10 5 times out of 10 races, so again, matching VKs, but he's been inside the top 7 in 4 of the 9 races. He only managed 5 top 7s last year, so he's on a good trajectory there. But yeah, it's been a quiet season, and as I say, I've not got loads to say on it, but he's gone under the radar, and that's why I feel like he's pretty unsung and deserves a bit of attention that we haven't really given him all year.
Yeah, as we said last week, it feels like it's been a bit weird because Armstrong's got 5 top 10s, but I can't really recall anything he did in any of them. He just appeared there, so credit to him. Okay, so moving to my unsung hero, maybe a bit left field, but who cares? This is my show. I'm going with Kevin Simpson. So obviously last year wasn't a great year for Simpson by any stretch of the imagination. We sort of knew he'd be a little bit out of his depth in his rookie season just based on his experience. But I feel like he's made a big step in his development this year, which has been good to see. His qualifying position is about 6 positions up on average compared to what it was last year.
I mean, I don't think he even qualified inside the top 20 last year.
He did in Road America because he got to the fast 12.
Oh, yeah. But I think that was that might have been the only one.
Yeah, and then he claimed his first top 10 in Long Beach, and that was a bit of a strategy gamble, but he drove well. Detroit got his first top 5 again, got a bit of fortune on the strategy, but as I said last week, I feel in those positions last year, he wouldn't have secured that result, and he achieved yet another top 10 in Road America, and he's been qualifying a lot better, as I said. He made the fast 12 in, it was Barber, and he made it in Indianapolis as well. And Indy 500, obviously taken out for no fault of his own. That could have been another top 10, top 15, the way that race went. That Indy GP where he qualified in the top 10 and was looking good all weekend. He didn't even start the race due to a mechanical issue. So he's been making quietly good progress. It's not of the standards of his teammates, but of course that's never going to be the case. But you feel like he has made a big step up compared to what year one is. We've seen other drivers in recent years maybe not make that step. I mean, Stingray Roberts, as an example, hasn't really made a huge step up. I think Nolan Siegel has made a step up, but not as much as maybe we've seen from Simpson, for example. Rasmussen, for example, he obviously made a step up with his first podium, but it hasn't been a massive step up, and maybe what we saw from him last year. So I think Simpson made a really big step up from where he was last year. And it's maybe actually slightly exceeded his expectations. And he looks a lot more comfortable than he did last year. And although he still isn't performing at the level that most Ganassi cars would, I feel like his development to year two has been particularly okay. Well, it's been good for me, which is why he's unsung for me. And I think he still just needs to do a lot of work on ovals. That is still his shortcoming. But progress is certainly being made this season. You can see that in pretty much every statistic. So it's my unsung hero.
He's still so young as well. I mean, he's 20, I think, still. So still super young. And I think, and this isn't meant to take anything away from him by any means, but I think it probably has helped him that Ganassi aren't as stretched as they were last year with their 5 cars. It's a lot more focused and the best personnel across their only 3 cars now. So I imagine that more, I guess, that added focus and has probably aided Simpson somewhat. But yeah, he just looks a lot more, I don't even want to say he looks a lot more steady because, I mean, I guess he made a few mistakes when it got to kind of the mid-season phase last year, but he was relatively clean for the most part, but he's just added a bit more, I guess, pace on top of that. And as I say, obviously, yeah, I forgot Road America last year, but he was qualifying in the 20s every race, and now he's very rarely back there.
He's qualified in the 20s 3 times of 9 this year, so a lot better.
So a lot better. So yeah,
his average 17th as well in qualifying. So again, there's several other. I mean, people like Ferrucci and VK and Daly are beneath him in qualifying averages. So definitely some improvement made there. We'll move on to the surprise package. So somebody who maybe has performed a lot better than we expected this season, but maybe isn't unsung because we're singing their praises every week. I've gone for Carl Kirkwood in my
well, I went for Felix Rosenqvist for this one.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So I'll quickly touch on why I went Kirkwood. As I said at the start, I'm not going to repeat this too much because we spoke about Kirkwood's season, but it's been a good year and we're seeing more of what we expected from Kirkwood. Did I expect him at this level? No. Long Beach was, okay, Kirkwood is winning again. That was a good performance. But if you said to me he'd get his first oval win this year, if you said to me he'd get 3 race wins this year at the midpoint of the season, if you told me he'd be second to standings, especially at the midpoint of the season, I would have been surprised. And that's just testament to the development that I mentioned earlier from Carl Kirkwood. And I think he's operating at a level that we didn't expect him to operate at this year, which I'm absolutely pleased he is. The team right now seems to be struggling. The 28 car has had a disastrous season. The 26 car, although is showing pace at times, isn't executing. Kirkwood is executing at an extremely high level. He'd have even more points if it wasn't for the loss of points he had at the Indianapolis 500. And Kirkwood hasn't really made any memorable mistakes at all this season. He's executing and performing at an extremely high level, and a level which I didn't expect him to. I don't think anybody did. So that is my surprise package. Again, I won't go into it too much because we touched on it earlier, but I think the level that we're seeing Kirkwood perform at is way higher than I think anybody expected.
Yeah, good shout. I went for Rosenqvist, and anyone who's listened to our reviews knows I love a good honourable mention. I did consider Ferrucci for this, just because kind of the turnaround in recent rounds after, he made the pre-season claims that they were going to win the championship and they'd be in the top 5 regularly. They were ridiculed early in the season, but he's really turned that around, which was impressive. And I considered Simpson for this as well, obviously just given the strides that he's made forward. But it's a funny one because Rosenqvist, objectively, I'm not surprised by his performance. But having a Meyershank racing car 4th in points past the midway point of the season, I feel like is a pretty big deal. Ahead of all 3 Penske cars, I don't think anyone expected that. We certainly did not predict that to happen. Yeah, I mean, he obviously and I mean, you've touched on him earlier, and this is why I didn't really touch on him when you were going in depth on him. But like, he's had a very similar start to last season with the five top tens in the first 6 races, and again, the fact that happened last year, that kind of reduces the surprise element, and it's just the Road America podium. And we spoke about this on last week's episode. Like, it feels like it shouldn't have been a first for them, really. This counteracts me giving Rosenqvist the award for surprise of the season, but I think just the general weirdness of the season kind of feeds into this being pretty surprising. Like, I feel like I know Rosenqvist is capable of being 4th in points, but yeah, having Meyer Shank there just feels like that is a turn up for the books, and I actually now have confidence that come Nashville, he could probably stay in and around that top 6 mark. And obviously Road America getting that podium was, I would say, a good sign that he's not going to have that tail off that we saw from him last year. Obviously there was a lot of misfortune involved in that as well, so hopefully he avoids that this season. But yeah, I found surprise quite hard. I don't think there are any like major surprises. So
VK was my alternate. Obviously I know you weren't going to pick VK, but I think VK objectively was a surprise as well.
Yeah, wasn't surprised to me because I always believed.
You liar! You didn't believe he'd be getting this many top 10s X races into the season.
We'll have to look back at what I predicted pre-season. I did give a prediction for top 10s. Maybe I reckon I said about 5 for the course of the season though. So yeah, even he might have exceeded my expectations. But I guess if you just weigh it up on like pre-season expectations of where they are performing now, yeah, VK's a good shout, but also I think Kirkwood and also Rosenqvist being 4th in points after 9 races.
And I think Palou, at the level he's operating at, is fundamentally a surprise as well.
It's like barely ever happened before. So yeah, you're right.
We'll move on to our new face and new place. Just recapping the best new face in new place. A driver who's moved team across the course of the season. I think we'll have the same person here, so we won't touch on it too long. We're just a little bit of a recap. Obviously, David Malukas joined AJ Foyt Racing at the start of the season, where Christian Lundgaard moved to Arrow McLaren. We have Rinus VK moved to Dale Coyne Racing. Alexander Rossi moved to Ed Carpenter Racing. And Marcus Armstrong moved to Meyer Shank Racing. So, have you gone for VK by any chance?
I actually haven't gone for VK.
Okay,
just I don't want to.
Just for the sake of being different. Have you gone for Lundgaard?
I have, yes.
Kick us off with Christian Lundgaard then.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to say VK again just because, for the sake of being different. But I just feel like Lundgaard deserves a mention, particularly for the way that he started the season. Obviously, 3 successive podiums in his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th races for the team was pretty impressive, which usurped what Alexander Rossi managed in 2 whole seasons and matched what Rosenqvist did in 3 years. So that was a pretty big deal. And even the 500 then, finishing inside the top 10 was solid, given he's, I feel like, still pretty unproven on ovals, Lundgaard. I think there's still more to show from that side of things. And I feel like since the 500, or really since Barber, he's dropped off a little bit. But the manner in which he took the challenge to O'Ward in what is O'Ward's team, and I don't think anyone really argues against that. But yeah, he just feels like he's unsettled the pecking order in a way that no other driver really seems to have done, and no one really seems to have come close to O'Ward. And okay, O'Ward's stretched his legs a bit in recent rounds as Lundgaard's dropped a little bit, but it's still just, it was pretty incredible. Like, I don't think anyone expected Lundgaard to settle quite as quickly as he did in a team that has been very unsettled in recent years. And I think Thermal in only the 2nd round of the season kind of set the tone with that front row lockout. That felt like a pretty big deal. And I think all of a sudden this year, I know they're not operating at the levels of, say, a Ganassi, but the team, talking, emphasis on team, look like more of a force. I feel like, and this was
you said AJ Foyt Racing was the best Chevrolet last week.
But I think we dispelled that as being recency bias, didn't we? I feel like they just, in a way that they haven't really before, Arrow McLaren, they have kind of got all of a sudden 2 consistent front runners. Because that's not to say that Rosenqvist wasn't a front runner when he was there, or Rossi wasn't a front runner, but they weren't doing on a consistent basis. And okay, we've got to see Lundgaard kind of return to his early season form for the end of the season, but that streak of podiums early on was super impressive, and I think that's what the team's needed for a while. But yes, AJ Foyt Racing in recent races have taken the fight to them, but I think on the course of the first nine races.
No, I've also gone for Lundgaard. I won't echo your words too much, but it was surprising to see how quickly he found his footing at Arrow McLaren. We expected him to be strong. I don't think we expected him to be this strong, and he really took award. Or took it to award in the early road and street courses at the start of the season. I feel like one thing I would say is you've maybe seen one or two mini errors. He obviously had that crash at Long Beach. I know he rebounded from it quite well, but that could have been quite a costly error in qualifying. Obviously did not have a great weekend at Road America, but a clumsy spin with Colton Herter as well. And ovals obviously still do need a bit of work. It wasn't a superb weekend in Gateway. A bit of inconsistency, which I think has been a bit of a topic at Aaron McLaren this year, in fairness. But Lundgaard has shown himself well. I think he's still overall performed a lot better than expected. I think David Malukas warrants a mention because he's run very well since the 500. But just didn't see enough from him really at the start of the year, whilst Lundgaard we really did. And he looks comfortable at Aaron McLaren straight away, moving from Honda to Chevrolet for the first time in his career as well. So, yeah, I think it's been a very promising start at Aaron McLaren for Lundgaard. Again, the work is still needed, particularly on the oval side of things. I think there's a lot of encouragement to take from how he has performed at the team. This next stretch will be a bit more difficult. Iowa's obviously one he's never really run too well at. Milwaukee and Nashville as well, obviously aren't the easiest places for him, but he's obviously run well at places like Toronto, Mid-Ohio. He's had a few good run-outs as well. So, a good opportunities ahead for Lundgaard. I think just want to maybe iron out some of these mistakes that we are seeing, where maybe we don't see on a wall side of the garage so much this year. But overall, I think Lundgaard has really sort of surprised people, especially how with Ward's teammates have fared in that team in recent seasons. And he's looking like the driver that Aaron McLaren have been looking for quite a while. He isn't quite polished yet, but he doesn't have the experience that Rossi and Rosenqvist did. He has the raw pace, and you can always fix those other issues with experience. Let's go to our disappointment of the season, which is a bit of a direct way of saying it, but it's one of those seasons where it's been so crazy, and there's been actually probably too many disappointments, and there's too many people to hand this award out to. So again, I think we'll probably go similar wavelengths there. I think there's really two people who stand out for this, but I'll start off with Marcus Ericsson for mine. I think.
Thank goodness, because I was really hoping we'd kind of telepathically gone different ways with this, which we have.
Yeah, for reference viewers, we never deliberate before any of these episodes. We just go straight in there, don't tell each other, and hope for the best, which makes it a bit more fun. So I'll start off with Ericsson, as I said, and I presume you're going to select Joseph Newgarden. So the difference between, for me, Newgarden and Ericsson, Newgarden has by no doubt been disappointing, but I feel like a lot of things weren't Newgarden's fault. Seatbelt issue, Long Beach, Indy 500 mechanical failure. He obviously had the Indy GP not starting issue. Gateway, he was obviously taken out for an effort of his own. But what the difference for me is Ericsson hasn't really made loads of mistakes. He's just hasn't got the pace that we expected of him. We said this several times in this podcast. Ganassi Ericsson was reliable, top 6 in the championship year on year. He was getting results consistently, top 10s, getting the odd win here and there. He looks a shadow of himself. He looks like a backmarker. I mean, he's 21st in the standings, 9 races into the season. Ericsson's the worst Andretti in qualifying. He's qualifying at an average of 12.1 at the minute. I mean, that's really curtailed in the last couple of races. He's only top 12 in qualifying since Alabama was at the Indy 500, where obviously qualifying is very, very different. He qualified very well at the start of the season, but that is some way off what Herter and Kirkwood are qualifying currently by about 3 and 4 positions respectively. And his average finish is really quite poor to him. It's his average finish currently is 18th position halfway into the season. And again, not many mistakes, but you could also look at the fact I know it eventually didn't mean anything, but he lost a 500 win through allowing Pelot past too easily and wasn't able to get back past despite having a better fuel situation and having fresher tyres. that's your biggest race of the season, and he fundamentally made an error which lost him that race. Road America, for example, last time out, he was just incredibly slow. We didn't really see anything of him. We're at a stage where Ericsson's had a 1 top 10 this season, and that was in the opening round at St. Petersburg. He's gone 8 races in a row without a top 10 finish for a driver who we usually praise as so consistent and such a reliable driver. And last year was not a good first year for Andretti, but that was okay. It's a learning year. This year's where we go all guns blazing and we'll turn that form around. And we haven't seen anything like the form that we expected from Ericsson. And here we are raving back Carl Kirkwood, who's second in the championship and really made a big step in development. Ericsson's got many more years experience than Carl Kirkwood, and Kirkwood's got 117 more points than Ericsson does. So I just feel like for a driver of his standards, an Indy 500 winner, we expect better. And look, there hasn't been loads of mistakes. There hasn't been many crashes. I know he had a bit of a scrappy one in Barber, for example, and he obviously made that mistake at the 500, as I mentioned. But
is that not even more concerning?
Well, that is more concerning because, well, obviously crashes are part of a driver having a poor season. If you're crashing week in, week out, that is bad. But it also is concerning because where's the pace gone? You can't have such disparity between a 27 and 28 car in the same garage. Something must be going wrong. So, yeah, it's just been a disappointing season for Ericsson. It's just not the standards we expect from him. And he's a better driver than somebody who's 21st in the standings. And this is the time where discussions are being held over next year. And you can't justify any circumstance where Ericsson keeps his seat currently.
And you've got Dennis Hauger waiting in the wings, who's having an incredible season in Indy Next, and Andretti are not going to want to let go of him because he is clearly a prodigious talent. But I tell you what this reminds me of. It reminds me to an even more dramatic extent of Jack Harvey when he joined RLL, and whatever we saw at Meyer Shank just disappeared completely. And I don't know whether it's something in the philosophy of the Andretti cars, but something just does not suit Marcus Ericsson there. And yeah, we obviously... I mean, you mentioned it. We hailed his consistency at Ganassi, and he said coming into this season that, you know, it's kind of a thing, and it happened at Ganassi as well, where he maybe takes a year to really get bedded in and get used to the team. And this year was going to be so much better. He'd done so much work in the off season, and I was really impressed with how candidly he was talking about the work he'd done with the mental trainer and all of that sort of thing. And we've just not seen the fruits of that at all. It's just got even worse. And yeah, you're talking about Ericsson here, 15 positions behind where he finished in 3 successive seasons with Ganassi, I think it was, 263 points off the championship lead. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, for me, it's Joseph Newgarden, who's only 14 points ahead of Ericsson. And I think by extension, Team Penske as a whole, it's just been a complete and utter disaster. I mean, there's a team, they are 10 races winless going back to Nashville last year. Last time they were 10 races winless was the end of 2015. And the last time they went 11 winless was a 15 race drought in 2007, 2008. So if they don't win at Mid-Ohio, that will be the worst in getting on for 2 decades. So yeah, it's not been good from the team as a whole, but I think it's just been a nightmare for Newgarden especially. And, you know, he comes into press on media day and he looks reinvigorated. He looks so positive again. And I believed him. I bought it. I thought he looked so relaxed and really appeared to have a proper reset. He looked confident. He was speaking about turning the negatives into positives. But when you thought it couldn't get worse than last year, it got catastrophically worse in the first half of this season. I mean, 8th in the championship last year was his worst since 2014, so 10 years. He's 17th at the moment. He's tracking for his worst season since he was 23rd in the standings as a rookie. And it's not long ago that we're talking about Newgarden being a champion in 17 and 19, going on a run of 3 successive runner-up finishes in the championship. And I don't know what sort of toll that took, going so close so many times. But since he came second to power in 22, he's just been on a downwards trajectory that's turned into a bit of a snowballing downward spiral, really. And yeah, he's 249 points behind the championship lead after 9 races. And I know Pallot's obviously been so impressive, but even looking behind Kirkwood, he's still 150 plus points behind second place. So in a year where we expected a rebound, I think we both predicted him to be kind of back up there in the fight. He's only 4 points ahead of Graham Rahal and Connor Daly. He's behind the likes of VK, Rasmussen, Simpson. And since he finished, third in St. Pete, which it was a solid start to the season. Obviously, they had a bit of a mishap there with the fuel as well, which I guess kind of set the tone. But he's finished no better than ninth. He's had 2 top 10s since St. Pete, and he's been in the 20s 4 times. And it just feels like everything that could go wrong appears to have gone wrong. And as I hinted at there with the fuel issue in St. Pete, it kind of feels like there've been team-wide issues in execution for Penske, not that kind of Penske perfect standard that we've been particularly used to. And there've been times where Newgarden's kind of reminded why he's a two-time champion, but he's just not been able to get across the line. Like, he's had a lot of misfortune. Obviously, the belts issue at Long Beach, and the issue at the start for the Indy GP is his issue in the 500 after it's just sublime drive through the field. He could have won that race from 32nd, which was an incredible drive. And Gateway, he led as well before really just getting a split-second decision wrong, which is, he was kind of innocent in that when he hit Foster. He's made his own errors. Detroit qualifying stands out, hit the wall there, and obviously the crash last time out Road America. But it also feels like, and I guess to a lesser degree from Ericsson, because it just feels like more has been going visibly wrong for Newgarden. But I feel like raw pace has become a bit more inconsistent on road and street courses. I think that's kind of Penske in general seems to have lost that a bit against the competition this year. But yeah, it's becoming humiliating from Newgarden. And, we've got a lot of ovals coming up, and obviously he ran really well at Gateway. And, I don't think his season couldn't even be saved at this point, but he can at least try and salvage something and just go all out for wins.
So McLaughlin is qualifying quite well, actually. So he's qualifying an average of 4th, but Newgarden's average qualifying is 14th so far this season. That's behind people like Alexander Rossi, Louis Foster, and ironically Ericsson. So he's not qualifying very well as Newgarden, which isn't helping his cause. And yeah, a lot of things have gone wrong for Newgarden, and you can pick out those 4 or 5 moments where he's lost points, but he also has made mistakes. And I say it's 3 times in the podcast, you make your own luck. If you're qualifying well, maybe you don't get involved in some of these incidents and don't have this misfortune. But the good news is for Newgarden, great record at Road America, so a great record at Mid-Ohio, superb record at Iowa, and will be one of the favourites at Milwaukee and Nashville as well. So it's definitely still time for him to turn it around. But yeah, it's just a 2-time champion. We expect standards so much higher than. You don't expect him to be 17th in the standings with 1 top 8. In 9 races. It's a run of form which is the worst of his Penske career, almost certainly. As you said, it felt like last year was a bit of a write-off. After a while, he had an Indy 500, so the rest of the season, not on that it doesn't matter, but there's still successes from that year. Now he doesn't have that. You're just chasing the results, and you are chasing a championship, and it hasn't quite panned out. And last year was scrappy, it improved towards the end of last year. It was inconsistent. This year, the only thing consistent is the lack of form that he and Penske have got.
There were caveats last year as well. I think the whole push to pass saga and the kind of villainizing of Newgarden really seems to unsettle him. This year, there don't feel to be any caveats. Obviously, there's the misfortune in quite an abundance, but at the same time, we're still seeing these errant weekends, these errant displays, and it's as I say, it's like a thing, a team-wide thing as well. But last year, I felt like there were mitigating circumstances with just how, the season started getting that win stripped from him. And he had the 500 the last couple of years as a silver lining. This year, there's no silver lining. And there's not saying that the push to pass thing was an excuse last year, but there's no silver lining and there's no excuses. And it's got even worse. So that's a worry.
Okay, let's move on to the moment of the season thus far. And I feel like we've probably gone similar for this one, but you can lead us off for this one.
Have you gone for Robert Schwartzman's pole position?
I have gone for Robert Schwartzman's pole position.
I don't know what it's going to take the rest of the season for that to be beaten come season's end. It's one of the best moments we've ever seen. It's still kind of scarcely believable, really. This is a team that at that point had never done an oval event, a driver to whom ovals were alien, and yet they managed to put it on pole for the biggest race of all. And as Schwartzman said, it was like it was so scarcely believable. It wasn't even something he could really muster up in his dreams. And yeah, it's just such a feel-good story, I feel. Like, I think it added to it almost how much it felt like throughout the whole thing, Schwartzman was really he was really living it. He was embracing the fear and the nerves of going around at 230, 240 miles per hour, doing something that he had he'd never done anything close to it before. And he just seemed to be loving it. And it obviously takes so much to master Indianapolis. And we've seen it from the likes of Carlin coming over and failing miserably. But Prema turn up and they absolutely ace it first time. And I guess the story really started on the Tuesday when they missed practice because they essentially weren't ready. And it's like, have they underestimated what it takes? Maybe the flip side, are they just showing the respect that Indy deserves? And ultimately, that day did just add kind of fuel to that fire of doubt. But I mean, you've ridiculed me for it, but I feel like quite logically said that this rookie driver team combination were probably the favourites to be bumped from the race. But that was a widespread belief, I feel, and that only really added, I feel like, to the magnitude of this storyline, a story that will stand the test of time in the storied history of this storied race. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take some beating for the rest of the season. It's one of the most feel-good stories. And after the first 5 races, I mean, it was a boring start to the season. Pelé was dominating and there was a bit of trepidation heading into the 500, what that would pan out. And ironically, Pelé won it. But seeing Schwartzman take that pole, it is the ultimate underdog story. In motorsport, you don't really have many underdog stories just due to the nature of the sport. And seeing one, especially in this series, for a new team, for a rookie driver, is such a great thing to witness. And it's such an unfathomable story. Like, if you said that pre-500, you would have just spoken to somebody like they'd gone insane. Like, they'd been starting... Well, they were just going absolutely nuts. You would have started throwing stuff at them. They were so delusional. And yeah, suddenly this young kid turns up on the block and takes a really impressive pole. Mine was quicker, well, not miles quicker, but significantly quicker than anybody else by Indianapolis standards. And the first day was okay. He got a good draw, into the fast 12. He might struggle a bit here. Then it's that great run the fast 12, and I was like, okay, well maybe he might be on for a front row here. That'd be impressive. And then out of nowhere, Schwartzman takes pole and what makes it better is I feel like the reaction in pit lane, like you see it every year when someone like Pelot or McLaughlin took pole, but for the whole team to be there, Schwartzman to be jumping out his car, watching on as everyone else attempts their laps. And most of Indianapolis had probably never heard of Robert Schwartzman's name before that day. And here he is on pole for the Indianapolis 500. It's obviously a bit of a shame that he didn't really lead many laps and it didn't quite fall his way in the race. But it was still a really magical moment, which makes the Indy 500 so great because you wouldn't see this anywhere else.
I mean, it was such a magical moment that I don't feel like what transpired in the race really detracted from any of it. And as you say, that the kind of reaction in pit lane was amazing. It was just showed every bit of the emotions of Indy. And I think that day as a whole with, I said this at the time, but it kind of emphasized the brutal brilliance of the Speedway and of the Indy 500 as an event. You had, 2 teammates slogging out to make the field and young rookie Jacob Abel failing to make the field. Yet on the flip side, you have this new team and a driver that's never seen or touched an oval before, putting it on pole. The contrast is unbelievable. The highest of highs and the lowest of lows. It's amazing. Roll on next year. I've got the counter on my whiteboard. 46 weeks until the Indy 500 campaign starts again. That
feels far too long. Anyway, let's go on to the best race of the year. I'm going to go for Worldwide Technology Raceway, or I should call it Gateway, or the Burrito 500, as it's actually called in this podcast. Excellent race. Short oval racing is superb. Multiple lines. Hybrid has made the racing better at Gateway, unlike every other back at the calendar.
Does correlation equal causation? That is the question.
I think that's more coincidence more than anything else, to be honest with you. But it's an ironic statement. And racing was just so good. So many unpredictable winners in the mix. You had Connor Daly in there for a while. Christian Rasmussen was flying. You had Callum Milot, Felix Rosa for something mixed like on. Dixon spawned out of nowhere to take the lead. You had probably about 10 drivers at any given point you thought could win the race, which is pretty cool. Racing was superb. We saw that battle with O'Ward and Daly, for example. It was unpredictable. People's races were just falling apart out of nowhere, under lights, primetime telly. Slightly surprise winner. Love it.
Yeah, that's my pick as well. It's the obvious one. Road America was decent, but Gateway's the resounding winner here. I mean, it was just the ultimate oval race, wasn't it? I mean, as you say, under the lights, prime time. Feels like that's when the cars really seem to come alive, and it was just IndyCar at its brilliant best. And I know it was late night in the UK. I think that makes it almost more kind of
was it late night or were we early morning this?
Yeah, early morning light by the time it had finished. That was wonderful. Couldn't sleep, but couldn't sleep because it was such a good race. I mean, it was a joy, wasn't it? Start to finish. And the action was just it was just unrelenting. I mean, you had passing kind of throughout the race, throughout the field, fights at the front, which we haven't really seen that often. Fires, forgot about the fire. Yeah, Christian Rasmussen metaphorically and quite literally on fire. You had all the incidents, a big crash, the craziness on strategy. It feels like every driver had some sort of peak, some sort of trough, so many swings, so many ups and downs. And like Road America a week later, it kind of made that craziness made it all the more remarkable that we still got a repeat winner. But no, that was a race that was just evidence of why oval racing is so addictive. And I hope we have more of that sort of thing in store for this oval heavy end to the season.
I always wonder with this question is how do we compare the 500 to other races? Because the 500 is always a good race, but you have expectations for the 500. So how does like this was a pretty average 500. So how does that compare to a great gateway race? It's hard to always picture this in my mind. It's something I was considering. But
yeah, it's really hard to compare. It's really hard. I think you have to. It has a higher bar. I think it has a higher bar.
Because you a great 500, you'll have such an electric feeling for days on end. And like a gateway, you still felt electric, but after a day it was like, okay, that was a fun little race at gateway. A great 500, you're on about it for
this
ages.
Is the thing. It wasn't a vintage 500 like we had in 24, for instance. But I'm still come away from it longing for that next week until we're back on track in Detroit. Whoa, no, I need another 2,000 laps.
Funniest moment of the year so far. We also do this weekly on the podcast, so we thought we'd bring it together. We had quite a few funny ones last week. We had Ferrucci chucking the beer, fuel was out, every car out, fuel and 10-1. We had boom. We've had plenty of stuff. I mean, I'm going to go for the cow debacle at Indy 500 press day with Schwartzman and O'Ward and kind of Sato. And I think it made it funnier that Sato had absolutely no idea what was going on for this entire conversation.
Yeah, this is my pick as well. But I think rather than us do the talking, let's just let the clip do the talking. Play the clip.
I'm jealous. I wanted to do that.
You can do that.
I've never milked a cow.
Man, you know what? Hold on. That's maybe what you need to have a proper good luck for winning Indy 500, because the woman, she came to me and said, the people who didn't milk the cow, they never won Indy 500 and they were like DNF and it's a bad luck. Whoever milked the cow, as like Alexander Rossi did it, he won the Indy 500. So you got to milk the cow. I was like, all right.
I'm going to go buy a cow and I'm going to milk it tonight.
No, I was going to say I didn't do that.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, it's maybe
there's some other ways you can get away with that.
Yeah, but you can always ask for milking a cow. Maybe next year. Ask for it.
Okay.
Get my own cow,
The cow name was Indy, actually. I got to meet her. She was very, very calm and cute, honestly. First you need to sort of pet her a bit, get comfy with her. And yeah.
Are they always ready to just...
I'm sorry, what was that?
All right, that went a bit sideways. I guess so, man. I guess, but again, as I said, try next year, man. Like whenever I came to her, she was ready. Like she explained me the technique, and it was okay. It was working well. But again, I don't know how it works there. But it was a lot of fun. It was good.
Did you try it?
What? No, the milk. No, I didn't try it, man. No.
Just don't drink in the low.
Yeah, just don't do that. Yeah. I just imagine Pato next year just underneath the cow, just like.
Maybe that's a good canning plan, huh?
Yeah.
Next question.
There we are. We don't really need to analyse the clip, but it's extremely funny. Warden Schwartzman's baby giggling is hilarious, and Sato's bemusement in it all, I think, just adds to the clip even more.
Yeah, watch the YouTube video if you want to see the actual visuals of this. Obviously, I don't think it'll come through too well, Sato's bemusement on the Spotify, but yeah, you'll be able to find it in the YouTube video of this podcast.
Because Schwartzman spoke about you have to win to milk with a cow, and didn't Sato say he had never milked with a cow? But it's a two-time winner, so he didn't help Schwartzman's point.
Then it ends up turning into Pato the day after, going down first thing in the morning to actually go and milk a cow that they delivered to him at the speedway, which was amazing.
Right, let's move on to a bit of the preview side of the rest of the season. As this podcast always does, we have a lot of predictions, but we'll start off with one driver who we think is worth watching for the rest of the season. So you can kick us off with this one.
Yeah, so I had a few names in mind. Will Power is an honourable mention for this because he is the lead Penske driver in the standings at the moment, and I feel like he's definitely one to watch. The Malukas situation, whether Power gets his contract, that seems like something that's now going to be decided after the season. Obviously, neither of us really considered touching on the Penske debacle as our moment of the season.
I think it was such a nothing incident. I feel
it was
exaggerated.
Yeah, I think it was, but just in terms of the consequence, obviously Penske losing their leadership team, and now that means is probably the reason why the team's a bit unsettled, and that's why Power's contract won't be decided until after the season. So that's still a big storyline for the rest of the season, because especially with Foyt being a little bit resurgent after their tricky start since May, and Malukas showing pace, I still think Malukas is making a few too many errors, and he knows this. So that's one to keep a close eye on. Obviously, a lot of ovals coming up, and Malukas is extremely strong there. But for me, my one to watch, I considered Colton Herta, but it's Scott McLaughlin for me. He's the driver I look at inside the top 10 as being the most out of position, alongside Herta, obviously, given he was runner-up last year. But McLaughlin is 8th after, obviously being 3rd in the points in successive seasons as the lead Penske car, the lead Chevy car in 23 and 24. But, we went into the season and, did we both predict him to win the championship? So,
Yeah.
what did you predict, Dan? Do you care to divulge?
This episode was filmed 4 months ago, so it has sort of just slipped my mind in the meantime, I think, to be honest. So
nothing to do with McLaughlin winning every single oval race and not even starting the 500.
No, maybe. I don't know. We're still 4 over the races left, so if we were to do all of them, it won't be too embarrassing.
But no, we obviously looked going into the season as McLaughlin being, he was our favourite for the championship. Yet here we are after 9 races and he's 196 points off the lead, which is astonishing. But yeah, I feel like despite Power being the lead Penske in points, I still feel like, and obviously backed up by McLaughlin's strength in qualifying, I still feel like he's been the quickest of the Penske drivers. He's been inside the top 10 all bar one qualifying, and I just feel like he's struggled to put it together in races. I guess similar to Newgarden, it's that execution I spoke about on a team-wide level, just not always being there. Like, even looking at the start of the season, St. Pete, they were on the wrong strategy. They started on the wrong tyre, and McLaughlin probably would have won that race. Instead, he finished 4th. And he's also been denied wins, or not even wins, but stronger results by his own errors, as small as, having a bit of a fumble on the entrance to the pits in the Indy GP. Probably would have finished 2nd, instead finished 4th. Biggest fumble of all, probably, in terms of a disappointing moment of the season, obviously his crash on the pace laps of the 500 was just mortifying. And then Detroit as well. It was just a misjudgment when he punted Siegel, but at that point he'd fortuitously been elevated ahead of Kirkwood, essentially as the leader of the race, but got into the back of Siegel. It was obviously nothing malicious. It was just a bit unfortunate, but he's been denied some good results there, and you've had circumstances like a missed time yellow at Road America when he looks in the lead fight, or car issues at Thermal Gateway. And Thermal obviously he was coming from the back after an awful qualifying, his only bad qualifying. But Gateway, he was in the lead. I think he was in the lead, or at least he was. He wasn't in the lead at the point of his failure. Actually, he started dropping back, but he was in that lead fight, of course, and had been all day. So Yeah, again, it kind of applies to Penske as a whole. I'm looking at all of their drivers because it has to start going right at some point, surely, you would think. But yeah, obviously with so many ovals to come, I would watch out for them as a whole. But I feel like given his hot streak for last year, how good he's looked on ovals, I'd look out for McLaughlin and obviously Newgarden as well. And as I mentioned, Power and that Maluka situation.
Glad you didn't go for Colton Herta because I did go for Colton Herta. Obviously, the tour call pre-season was the super license. I think it's probably now F1's probably a bit out of reach for him anyway. One, because he's not going to get a super license, and two, it looks like Cadillac are exploring other options as opposed to Herta. But I feel it's still an important second half of the year for Herta because we've seen how well Kirkwood's performed, and for years this has been Herta. Stephen Herta's still young; he's still 25. But now suddenly it feels like there's been a change of dynamic, and this might be Kirkwood's team now, and he might be the one to lead them forward to championships. And the belief was always that it was Herta who lead them to championships. And last year we saw sort of the bounce back we were looking for. Herta was second in the standings. He won on over races. I mean, he returned to victory lane for the first time in 2.5 years. So that was great then, but that form hasn't really translated, which has been disappointing. It's been sort of the Colton Herta we saw 2022, 2023, whereas unpolished is the word I'd use. He's still qualifying really well, and his qualifying average is really let down by obviously his crash at the Indy 500. But that's one of the mistakes that we're seeing too many of this season. We had that crash at the 500, for example. I mean, to be fair, he hasn't made many mistakes, but he's just not executing. He's not executing. Road America, 16th. How? Gateway, 17th. How did he get to 17th after what seemed like a promising weekend? Indy 500, that crash had to put him in the spare tub, ended up 14th there. Obviously, had an issue with the Indy GP. St. Petersburg, that fuel issue, okay, that let him down again. But Alabama, he obviously had that issue in the pits where he stalled it. That cost him several positions. So it's unpolished from Herta, and he's got one podium at this point in the season, whilst his teammate we're speaking about is one of the top performers this season. And where's that consistency in that form gone, which really impressed us last year and suddenly elevated Herta back as, okay, he is rejuvenated. He is still one of the top drivers in the series. And I think he needs to prove that he still is one of those drivers. He can't afford to be having one great year and then 2 off years in his career because you're not going to win championships like that. And it's not a team problem because Kirkwood's performing excellently and Kirkwood is executing even on these not so good days. Herta isn't executing on even what feels like it's going to be his good days. So what Herta needs to work on translating that in the second half of the season, and he needs to prove that he has got the pace. And I'm not saying superiority over Kirkwood, but he is on, at the very least, a similar level to Kirkwood and is winning races. And he is a driver that Andretti can feel confident will win championships in that team.
I would say it's not a team problem in respect of the performance and the potential. I would say it's a team problem in the respect that the 2017, I feel like, is executing on a level close to below. The 2016, they seem to be having still too many fumbles. Like, they've had a few too many issues in pit lane. And yeah, of course, we've seen races where Herta's not executed himself, but I don't think it's been as scruffy from Herta as we saw in those other seasons where he was finishing down in kind of lower end of the top 10. But he's still there. And we kind of felt like last season was a real, I don't know, you can't really call it a breakthrough because we'd seen it before from Herta, but it was almost a return to what everyone kind of believed and knew that Herta was capable of. And I feel like him and McLaughlin have had very similar seasons. Maybe McLaughlin's had even more misfortune than Herta, and he's not had the mysterious. I feel like every result McLaughlin, there's a reason behind it, whereas Herta, I feel like we've just had a few too many mysterious days. And he went from, I feel like at the start of the season, even St. Pete finished 16th or 17th after having an issue in pit lane, and you actually felt like, okay, he's maximized that, but that's just tailed off as the season's gone. And yeah, they've had similar seasons in the respect that I think potential's the watchword, but execution is also a watchword as well. And they've not kind of maximized the potential that they have had. And yeah, I mean, the super license talk feels a long time ago now. Yeah, it's just not been a good season, has it, for Herta? And I just thought this was in the past. I was so confident this was in the past. And I still think he's been one of the top 5 quickest drivers in the series this season. but he's just not
But
put
that's
it all
always
together.
been the case throughout his entire career. He's always been a rapidly quick driver who has struggled to execute that pace at times. And I will agree, there's been points that maybe the standard let him down. But with a driver who's now got 7 years experience in the series now, these errors shouldn't be happening, especially on a stand which has been. I know he changed strategists last year or the year before, but the personnel can't have changed too significantly since. And look, he was still on the same stand that was executing at a great level last year. So why is the same stand not performing at a great level this year? And obviously some of that accountability must come down to Colton Herta.
Yeah, I'm interested to kind of get his perspective almost on how much Kirkwood succeeding in the way that he is I don't know whether that impacts Herta at all, because this, as you say, has been his team for so long. And Kirkwood's just come in and gradually kind of chipped away and has really, really upset the apple cart there now.
Okay, let's move on to the prediction side of things, which, as you've gathered from various different prompts during this episode, have not gone too well so far this season. But this isn't a very serious one. This is like a mini prediction towards the rest of the year. So I'll start off with top 5 in the championship. Who's your number 5?
This is the one position I've not been certain on. In fact, I've just changed it a few minutes ago, but I'm going to go for Rosenqvist.
Okay, fine. So I feel like I've probably not thought this one through, to be completely honest with you. But, I've gone for Christian Lundgaard.
Well, so that's who I literally just switched out, but then I kind of was thinking about the oval talk.
That's kind of put me off a little bit, but, he could have a good run at Toronto again. He's run well at Mid-Ohio, so maybe a good result at Portland.
Exactly.
He's still capable of getting a top 10 in an oval, I think. So I don't think that's... Yeah, it will let him down, but I don't think... I mean, he's not got... that gap between Rosenqvist, Dixon and Lundgaard, they're separated by 3 points, and it's about another 31 down to Power. So there is a little bit of a gap there, which will hopefully help build a buffer, especially Iowa time. But I've gone from 5th, and you've gone Rosenqvist 5th. I've gone from McLaughlin 4th. I reckon make a bit of a bounce back.
I've also gone for McLaughlin in 4th.
Perfect. So, yeah, I think obviously not been a great run from McLaughlin, but there's so many ovals that Penske have got to rebound at some point. So, our top 3 will probably be the same, but we'll go over anyway. I've gone for Kirkwood in 3rd.
Oh, have you? I've gone for O'Ward in 3rd.
Fine. I just think, I know Kirkwood won it's beaten O'Ward at Gateway, but I feel O'Ward is a stronger overdrive in the grand scheme of things, and will run more consistently in and around the top 5 in Iowa, Nashville, and Milwaukee than Kirkwood will. So hence why I put him 2nd, and presumably you put Kirkwood 2nd.
Yeah, I've put Kirkwood 2nd. No, Kirkwood's win the championship. I'm kidding. No, I've just got such confidence in Kirkwood now. I feel like I'm more confident in him on the road and street course races. It's quite a high chance I think Kirkwood will probably win Toronto.
Obviously, first for both of us going to be Alex Palou. I think if anyone...
I put Joseph Newgarden.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, I was considering putting Stingray Robb in fairness, but switched to the last second. I mean, if anyone listening to this podcast thinks Palou isn't going to win the championship, I think you need a bit of a reality check.
Wait for this to be on our end of season blooper.
Well,
episode.
We've done such a good job at cursing Palou. It deserves to be a blooper. We've reinvigorated the competitiveness in the series through our predictions, so nobody can blame us at that point. I always love a segment predicting the winners between now and the rest of the season. How many do you have out of interest?
2.
You have 2?
I'm kidding. It's not going to continue.
You're going to try and be funny and say Palou and Kirkwood.
I've got 5.
Okay, I've also got 5, so that works out pretty nicely. Fine. Palou. We'll probably win what we're doing now at the end of the year. And how long will the streak go on for, do you think? When will the Palou-Kirkwood streak end? Will it end Mid-Ohio, or are we going to wait till Iowa, or even longer?
No, it'll end at Iowa. I think Palou will win Mid-Ohio.
Will Palou win every road course this year?
I think he will. Yeah, I had that in my head that he probably will.
Okay, right, fine. Right, we both agree Palou's going to win. Do you think Kirkwood's going to win another?
I do, yeah. I think he'll win Toronto.
Because I said Herta will win Toronto.
Okay. That's also viable.
Do you have Herta to win one or not?
I don't know.
Okay, fine. So, yeah,
do you have Kirkwood to win one?
No. Because I feel like his only real shot... Again, I wouldn't have seen him having a shot at Gateway, but I feel his best shot is at Toronto, and I feel Herta's very strong at Toronto.
They ran really well at Nashville last year.
They did, but I think other drivers wouldn't. So, Newgarden will pick up one of the ovals.
Newgarden's going to win.
It's been a disastrous year, but for him to... Well, I know he didn't win at Iowa last year, but for him not to take one of the Iowa or any oval race would be unfathomable, really, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think on a similar vein, Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah. I would be shocked if he managed to get to 4th in points without winning a race.
Yeah, correct. So who's your final one?
Do you want to throw yours out first?
Scott Dixon.
Scott Dixon, interesting. Where's he winning?
I don't know yet, but I made this mistake a few years ago not predicting a mid-season, and it came back to bite me horrendously. I actually think he might bag... For me, it's between Portland and Nashville. One of those. Maybe both. Let's say both. He always ends the season as well, does Dixon? Does he? Yes, he always does end the season as well. So I'm going to go Portland and Nashville for Dixon.
Wow, okay. I've gone for Connor Daly.
Okay.
I think he's just, he's led both the, on merit, led the most recent 2 oval races. I don't see any reason why that stops. I mean, he topped the test at Iowa, and Hunkos have really struggled on road and street courses this year, but they've, especially on Daly's side, really, really come alive on ovals. So I weighed up Daly and the 2 AJ Foyt cars as well. But no, I'm saying this is the year that Connor Daly I feel like he's trending in such a good direction. This is the year he finally gets that oval win, that win.
What? You didn't have to do this, but what I'm going to do, just so it's in my mind, Pillow wins Mid-Ohio. Newgarden wins Iowa 1, McLaughlin Iowa 2. Herta goes to Toronto and Laguna. Portland goes to Dixon. Milwaukee goes to Newgarden, and Nashville goes to Dixon. It's my end of the season. That's interesting. So no McLarens from either of us. No Foyts from either of us. No.
I did debate the Foyts.
No Power from either of us. No Shanks, because they're in outside contention at the minute. Interesting. I feel like I've gone very conservative to how I normally do this.
I've gone conservative bar 1. But
numbers-wise, we usually go for 7 or something.
Oh, yeah.
Drivers, and we've gone for... I feel like I've been a lot more reasonable going for 5. 5 in that race is still a lot compared to start of the season, isn't it?
It won't. They won't just win the rest of the races, will they?
Oh,
I mean, they can't. They can't. They can't.
No, it's going to end at some point, isn't it?
I don't see either of them winning Iowa, but at least both Iowa. I know Polo's actually been pretty decent at Iowa in recent years, but
he did get very fortunate last year, didn't he, with that caution? Talking of predicted tournaments, we have got Mid-Ohio next week, so we need to do our Fast 6 predicted tournament. So we will get you our Fast 6 and be back with you briefly. Alex Pillow's a bet for this every week without fail, I think, at the minute.
Yep, Alex Pillow is in my Fast 6.
I will go for Scott McLaughlin this week as well.
I've also gone for Scott McLaughlin.
He's qualifying really well, as we said. So again, he is a bit of a staple with me. He's qualified for the Fast 6 pretty much every race, apart from Indy 500. We didn't have a chance, and Detroit and Thermal, obviously. Those 2 races are a bit difficult. I'm going to go for Joseph Newgarden as one of mine.
I've not gone for Newgarden. That's interesting. He did qualify fairly well.
He's got a good record at Mid-Ohio. Who have you gone for instead?
Kyle Kirkwood.
Yeah, no Kirkwood from me this week. Interestingly enough, I've gone for his teammate though, Carlton Herta.
I have also.
Cool. I've gone for Pato Award, who's not very common a pick at the minute.
No, I didn't go for Pato.
Off camera.
Yeah. As we've just said off camera, Pato seems to have a good record of getting to the Fast 12, but doesn't seem to have that pace with the hybrid to really transfer that often to the Fast 6. So, no, I've gone for Rosenqvist over Award.
And I'll end up with Malukas.
Okay, so I started writing Malukas and then rubbed him out. I think I forgot about him. Anyway, I went for Rossi.
Ooh, Rogue One.
Which is interesting because, I mean, they had an awful Road America, but, I mean, I was listening to Off Track and they basically just... him and Rasmussen both had completely different setups. Nothing was the same between their cars and they were both awful. Then they managed to solve the problem. But Rasmussen qualified 8th at Mid-Ohio last year. So I'm seeing that as Ed Carpenter racing are pretty strong. Rossi's had a few good qualifyings this year. So, yeah, Rossi.
Well, Malukas has got a very good record at Mid-Ohio. He qualified 8th in 2022 and finished 9th, and that was in Coyne. Year 2, he finished 6th at Mid-Ohio, and he obviously qualified really well last year in his comeback race. No, it was the second race, wasn't it? Because he raced at the Duke last year.
Second race, but that was the real big statement one, I think, when he qualified 3rd.
So, yeah, he's got a really good record here, so that's why I've gone for a little Dave as mine. So, what we've both gone for Palou, McLaughlin, and Herta. So we're actually somewhat different this week.
Might be a record for the new year, I think.
I think it actually might be the most different we've gone for this season. Maybe apart from, no, Indy 500 went similar. Yeah, I think that might be the best this year. You just mentioned off track, and it's time to talk about the allegations. Well, not the allegations, the factual statement of some... There's like an IndyCar podcast ranking going around on Twitter the other day, which was ranked by Rossi, like, quote tweeted it and saying more representative than IndyCar power rankings, because the DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast was ahead of Off Track by Hinch and Rossi. So we just need to clarify officially we are the better podcast.
Yeah, 9 places we ousted them by as well. Emphatic. We were 13th. They were 22nd, I think. I'm disappointed with 13th.
I think that's harsh.
On, guys.
Yeah, that is harsh.
Why didn't even make the Fast 12?
Yeah, I can't even name 13 IndyCar podcasts, to be completely honest.
Let's just caveat it. I'm pretty sure this was AI. The cover image was a BMW GT car, and an F1 podcast was second. Totally legit rankings.
But we've got to hold it to our grave that we beat Hinch and Rossi's well, it's not a serious podcast, but they've got all the equipment, and they've got a formal host, and they've got 2 drivers with plenty of IndyCar experience, whilst we certainly don't have any of those.
Of course, have it.
Hinch and Rossi, you won't be listening, but if you are, we are the better podcast.
Maybe they are listening, because maybe that really popular tweet that somehow gained loads of traction ended up having loads of people scroll past the podcast. So if you found us via that, please drop me a message on Instagram, Archie@Riley_, and please let me know. And hello, welcome.
Yeah, so if you found us via Millions Podcast, very, very accurate list of an F1 podcast in second, please let us know. I mean, I'll be honest, there's some podcasts ahead of us that I have very little familiarity with, which is interesting.
There was a Motorsport one on there.
It also says we have 1 review. I also would quite like to know what the email contact is and how they found us. It's not really hard to find our email, but that's also rather amusing. We'll leave it there on the high note that our podcast is the 13th best IndyCar podcast, 9 places clear off Track by Hinch and Rossi. It's like Top Gear, and on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thanks very much for watching, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.